at the age of 96 in Israel. Uncle Louis was the older brother of my grandfather, the Sandik in Baal Shabbos, my cousin David Cohn, who is my Uncle Louis' son. Last Monday, when Eliezer was born, I called my cousin David, who is in town in Ukraine for knee replacement surgery, and I asked his permission to name our boy after his father, my Uncle Louis. So David was as close to his father as is possible for a son to be with his father, especially the last 8 years of Uncle Louis' life. Uncle Louis was living in David's apartment in Yerushalayim, and David took care of him 24 hours a day. When I heard the emotion in David's voice, when I asked him if we could name the son after Uncle Louis, he said, "Permission? What are you, crazy? Of course." And I too became a little choked up on the phone, because I was filled with pride, gratitude, and honor that our son would bear the name of his very great uncle, Uncle Louis. So Uncle Louis was a very remarkable person. He was a simple man. He was born in Chicago, but you never would have known that he was born in Chicago 96 years ago. Anybody who met Uncle Louis thought he was born in Europe, in a shtetl. My cousin David refers to his father as the European Yid, born in America. I think he lived, although he lived almost his entire life in Chicago, remarkably, he even had, I believe, a European accent. You never would have known. There's no hard Chicago accent. It was more European than Chicago. When talking about my Uncle Louis, I think it would be helpful to speak about his namesake in the Chumash. My son Avi just mentioned, Eliezer Ed Aram. So in the Chumash, Eliezer figures most prominently in the story of selecting a wife for Yitzchak. It's remarkable. The Torah goes out of its way to never refer during that entire story to Eliezer by name. Nowhere does it state that Eliezer was in fact the servant that Abraham had sent to go and find a bride for Yitzchak. Each time he's referred to either as Eved, as a servant, or as Ish, as the man. Of course we're talking about Eliezer, but the Torah doesn't want us to pay attention to his name. 24 times throughout the course of the story in the Chumash, he is referred to, but never as Eliezer. The Torah draws our attention to these two qualities of Eliezer, that of being an Eved, a servant, and that of being an Ish, a man. So what is the message? The Torah is referring to him both as an Ish and an Eved. And who was this Eliezer? Was he an Ish or was he an Eved? We offer two simple suggestions, and I'll let you all get to work. Actually, let us little Suda first. On one level, I'd say this tension between being an Eved and being an Ish is the normal tension that all parents face every day. The tension of being an Ish and being an Eved, I argue, is almost the ideal personality. It's the fusing of two seemingly contradictory but complementary values. Jennifer and I, I'm sure all parents, work very hard to instill self-confidence, pride, courage, and independence in our children. The values of being an Ish. But we also try to instill the values of humility, loyalty, and modesty, the values of being an Eved, being a servant. These two aspects of being Eliezer, those of being an Ish, a man, and being an Eved, a servant, are values we hope to inculcate in our little son. Much as the Hasidic master, Simcha Bunim of Shista, kept two pieces of paper in his pocket. Each piece was inscribed with a different quote. One from the Mishnah in Sanhedrin says, "Bishvili nivra olam," the world was created for me, the motto of the Ish. And the other, the statement of Abraham Avinu, "V'anochi afar ba'efer," I'm but dust and ashes, the motto of the Eved. Little Eliezer should grow up emulating these two values, being both an Ish and an Eved, of being able to walk boldly and speak softly. To be Eliezer is to be an Eved and Ish at the same time. But on another level, we should realize the values of Eved and Ish, not necessarily as complementary values to each other, not necessarily as two sides of the same coin, but as sequential values. One value stems from the other, one value flows from the other. How does one become an ish? By seeing himself as an eved. By being an eved, Eliezer became an ish. Living a life of humility and modesty does not prevent one from being an ish, in fact it allows one to become an ish. My uncle Louis was an Eliezer par excellence, an ish like no other. And he was that way because of humility, because he was an eved. Uncle Louis was famous in Chicago for walking on the neighborhood on Friday nights after dinner and knocking on the doors where he heard them singing zmiros, asking if he could join them. He'd hear Divrei Torah at the table and comment, ask somebody, walk up to somebody's house and ask them for a vort. Uncle Louis didn't expect any kavod, and he learned Torah from everyone. One of my favorite stories about Uncle Louis. For the last few years of his life, he was almost blind. He couldn't learn on his own. So during his last years in Chicago, when he was in his late 80s, he would walk to the local cheder, which is down the block from his home. He'd sit for hours in cheder in the elementary school, sitting in the shiurim of the young children. An 85-year-old man sitting with 8-year-olds, 9-year-olds. He wanted to learn any Torah. Anybody could teach him Torah. Any Torah was valuable to Uncle Louis. There was always something you can learn. He was an eved, humbly serving the Kadosh Baruch Hu. And in the last years of his life, when he was basically completely blind, he would sit across the street in the base medrash across from my cousin David's house in Or Sameach in Yerushalayim, and have Bachrim read to him, have Bachrim learn with him. Just sit down in the base medrash and listen to people learning Torah. For him, it was the greatest joy. I remember when I was 19 years old, it was during the summer, I just returned from learning yeshiva in Israel. I had a wonderful opportunity to learn with Uncle Louis in the base medrash of Lakewood Kollel in Chicago. I don't remember what we were learning that summer, but we would meet in the Kollel and then I would drive him home. Uncle Louis couldn't see very well even back then, so it was mostly me reading to him and responding to his questions. I have a certain memory though, besides the learning, it really sticks with me and it's always etched powerfully in my mind. One of the Kollel Yungalite in the base medrash walked over to me one day as I'm walking Uncle Louis out, takes me aside and says, "Wow, you related to Eliezer Cohen? He's a tzaddik." For a 19-year-old boy, that was a very strong impression upon me. He was a man who saw himself as an eved, but who everyone else saw as an ish. Endless stories of Uncle Louis' greatness. Most of them were based on his simpleness, of his tamimus and his profound sincerity. Some of the stories have been recorded in books. Most of them, our family has etched in our memories. I sincerely hope that our son will follow in the footsteps of Uncle Louis, and that he'll be a source of nechama to Uncle Louis' entire family, and especially to David Cohen, who in many ways really considers himself a yasov, an orphan, since Uncle Louis' passing. I look forward to the days when somebody will say to our little Eliezer, "Wow, you're named after Louis Cohen? He was a tzaddik." Little Eliezer, we hope that you will carry your name with the pride of the ish and the humility of the eved. Thank you all for joining us here this morning. Really, it's bliss for us to have so many people sharing us this morning, especially on a weekday morning when has to go to work. So if you'll join us, there'll be some more speeches next door, but feel free to join us for this Seudah. Thank you very much.